Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Adventures Travel Club television show. Betty, we find ourselves tootling along again on the roads in central Norway, right?
I'm laughing again because it seems like every time we open, we're on a bus going somewhere. But that's what you have to do to get where you want to go and see what you want to see.
That's right, from point A to point B. And you see, it had rained just a little bit earlier in the day, and look up there, and it looks like there's some sort of, that sort of looks like a little ski area, doesn't it, up there?
Very clear.
We see an awful lot of that as we travel around. I wanted to let everybody know that most Norwegians are from the same ethnic background. The typical Norwegian, if you were to look at a picture of a so-called typical Norwegian, would be tall and blonde with a narrow face and eyes that are usually blue or gray. Now, some shorter, darker Norwegians live in the southern part of the country, and they may be descendants of people that were brought into the country by the Vikings generations ago. But the only true racial minority among the Norwegians are the Lapps. And you know what they call the Lapps now? They referred to
Laplanders.
No.
They do?
I know
that.
They call them Samis.
Oh, okay.
S-A-M-I-S.
But they are Laplanders.
Well, but they don't live in Lapland. They live in Finnmark. Most of the Lapps live in Finnmark, or the far northern region of the country that we refer to as Lapland, but they don't refer to it as that.
That's the beginning of Finland and the end of Denmark.
No.
That's the way you said it. Finnmark. Finland. Denmark.
No, because Denmark is way to the south.
But the wording. Just listen to
Finnmark.
Finnmark.
Well, that's what they call it.
I'm not thinking of site location.
Okay, just the word.
Okay.
But the Lapps have Oriental features. They've got dark hair and eyes, and they're much shorter than the rest of than their countrymen. Anyway, they belong to a tribal system that extended all through Scandinavia and into Russia. And probably about 22,000 Lapps live in Norway, and about 15,000 or so of them live in Finnmark. Anyway, that was to give you a little background. Now, we're going up to a hotel where we stayed for a couple of nights, and boy, I'll tell you, this road going up there was a real hairpin thing, back and forth and back and forth. And we did find the next day there was an easier way to do that. But a lot of people have looked over and said, oh my gosh, that looks just like Yosemite. Well, kind of, doesn't it? I mean, you have the waterfalls there, and you have, of course, where the glacier must have come through here and just cut this swath right through here, and it's just a magnificent place. The hotel where we're staying was originally a hotel, and then during World War II, it was taken over by the Germans because this was a very strategic place. In fact, the road that you just saw down there was the only road, the only highway between Oslo and between there and Bergen, and so this was the main thoroughfare. So this was a good place for the Germans to have some sort of a lookout so that they could, keep control of who was coming and who was going, at least so that they could see this from this area. And they took over the hotel, and they put their military people there. And then after the war, the hotel, from what I understand, it changed hands several times. It became a hospital and an asylum, and then back to a hotel again. But it is a gorgeous spot for a hotel, isn't it, Betty?
Yeah.
Look at that.
Marv, answer a question for me, please, about the Germans when they were there and had taken over, and that they used this as one of their observation points for incoming armies. Where were they coming from? In which direction?
Well, I don't think that there was an army that came in. I mean, they just came in and occupied the country. And of course, what they were looking for is
convoys coming through.
No, because there was no invading forces there. But the only thing is that there was a resistance movement with the Norwegians themselves. So, because the Americans, to my knowledge, didn't get up to Norway or anybody else.
No.
So it was the Norwegians, of course, that were doing, sabotaging the various places that the Germans occupiers had there, and so. But the Germans, of course, then they wanted to be able to control the highways and also the port cities, too. So this was a very strategic place because that was the only road. Now, Betty, that's what I really enjoy. Just before dinner, having your little drink there and sitting out, looking at that magnificent view, plus all the wonderful antiques that were inside the hotel.
Oh,
It's
weren't
just
they
beautiful.
gorgeous?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't like all of them. I mean, there are a lot of antiques I don't like, but oh man, I thought these were just beautiful.
They were very, very nice, and the people, of course, here at this hotel were great too. And I'm sure that they really catered, to a lot of tourists. Probably Norwegian as well as foreign tourists too. But it was just so nice to see. Now this happened to be a wedding. That was part of a wedding garment, and even with the crown on that. And
I was thinking, you said it's part of a wedding. I thought, well, they didn't have a wedding when we were there.
no, in fact, I don't know what happened, but I know I took some pictures because they had on their walls there. They had pictures of various wedding costumes from the various regions of Norway, and something's happened because I wasn't able to find that.
Yeah,
I
that
hope I
was-
didn't lose that tape somewhere.
No, because that was great. Because I always think at the Smithsonian, that's one of the first places I like to go to because I love to see the gowns. I like to see what the president's wives wore when their husbands were inaugurated.
It's interesting. It's interesting, and I thought this was too because you could see as you were visiting there, you could see the costumes from various regional areas. Now this was just sort of another little part of a building there that you can see, and there again, as we go along the countryside, you can see that the vegetation starts to grow.
Yeah.
on top of this. Reminds you sort of a sod house, doesn't it? But a little different. And
Shouldn't we might be in Ireland, huh? Oh, Monsignor would have a fit if he hears me saying stuff like that. He thinks when
Your
I
Irish
try to
accent is
talk
not that
Irish,
great?
it's awful.
Well, this was a very, very beautiful spot, and this was just a great place to rest because we had a nice trip on the bus that day, and this was just, I thought, magnificent. As we say, a lot of it looks very similar, of course, to Yosemite, but I was amazed because I didn't expect to see something like this,
What
And
do you
that's what
think?
it
Oh,
went for.
you mean that type of a hotel stuck up in a mountaintop in between nothing?
Well,
No, it sort of is,
Yeah, but you have to qualify that statement because you've got a lot of little villages and a lot of little tiny places stuck all over. But and like you said earlier, or maybe one of the other programs, and that was that there are only really two large cities there in
That's right.
in Norway.
In Norway, yeah.
So yeah, it's beautiful.
Marv, I thought an interesting thing too is that in Norway, you were talking about the lap. Wait a minute. See, how'd you call them? The lat marks.
The Laps.
The lap. No, wait, no.
Oh, you're talking about Finnmark.
Finnmarks.
The
Okay.
area up on the north part. Mhm.
Yeah, but actually, there's only about 3% of all Norway that are foreign-born.
Mm-hmm.
These people are true natives in
That's
this
right.
country.
That's right. That's right. This area, as we stated earlier, was controlled during World War II, of course, by the Germans because they wanted to make sure that they could see what's going up and down the road. And they had here a machine gun nest. And this was the entrance to it down here. It's still here. And they really don't point that out. Somebody happened to mention it to us, and I said, "Oh, wow, where is it?" I said, "Oh, it's over in that direction somewhere." So we went over wandering a little bit.
Something
and
to be forgotten, huh?
yeah, I think so. Because a lot of
Oh, yes.
see, there it is, the Lorelei. A lot of the resistance Norwegians were, of course, executed by the Nazis, and a horrible thing. Anyway, we're inside the bunker right now, and you can see the placement for where the machine gun was at one time, and of course that's the
There's the
hole
road.
out there where the machine gun would stick its little nose out. But look at that. I mean, they really did.
They had perfect view of the incoming
they
or
had the view.
outgoing. Huh?
That's right, yeah. Because at that point in time, remember, that was the only road between Norway and Bergen, right here. And so they could see if anybody was coming or a-going, and I'm sure that they kept pretty good track of that because the Norwegians were very good at the resistance movement. They were very good at sabotaging a lot of the things that the Nazis had in Norway. They came as uninvited guests.
Of course. There wasn't a lot of building destruction, though. Most of the destruction that have taken place in Norway have been due to fires.
And there was some bombing, though,
Some
too.
bombing.
Yeah, and we're going to go through a town where most of the town, except for the church and the hotel, was completely bombed out during World War II. And this is a part of the road there. And now if we were to look from the outside, that little machine gun nest would be under that, right there, almost in the center of the picture. That's where this little wall is right here. So anyway, as you can see, they had a pretty good vantage point right here. Yeah, there was that had been bombed out, and I haven't read too much. I've seen a couple of films actually on what happened, during World War II in Norway, and it was really quite exciting. And of course, when we visited the town hall, we also saw the pictures that were there, the paintings that had depicted that particular time in history. But now we're going to get on the road again. It's next morning, and we've had a beautiful, wonderful breakfast, and it's time for us now to head on. We're going to head to the city that you want to see, Betty.
Yeah, I've been waiting for this.
So we're going to head to Bergen, but we have a couple of stops to make before we get there.
Our day today will be again full of beautiful sights. I know it's a little strange to talk about food directly after breakfast, but I would like you to prepare yourselves for the day today. Because when we get to Bergen, Bergen is a cruise ship city. Cruise ships come into Bergen. They also do the same sightseeing as we do, and they're everywhere. So we've tried to avoid them by starting just a bit later than they, and hopefully they will have left the places that we will then be heading for.
Well, when we get to Bergen, I'm sure that all of the tourists will be gone and we'll be able to enjoy our place. Now, Betty, you talked about that the Finnmark again, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, okay?
Oh, I would just be thrilled to death, Mark.
Okay, now, but first of all, I think we have to remember the geography of Norway. Norway also borders Sweden, it also borders Finland, and it also borders Russia. And before we tell you much more about that, though, I want you to listen to this waterfall. Well, now, I hope that makes you thirsty, because if you drink from these waters, it's almost guaranteed that you are going to lose years and you're not going to age anymore.
Don't believe it. It didn't work for me. Don't believe it.
Supposed to take years off. That's what they say. And George said he was going to drink about 10 gallons of it there. So anyway, it was a great stop, because we're almost outside the town of Voss, which we'll tell you more about a little bit later on.
Mark,
but anyway, it's time to drink.
I want to ask you something about this, though. It's amazing to me that some entrepreneur didn't come in there and start bottling this water and selling it and sending it all over. That's what I would think I would do with it. Bottle it. We have so many, a sucker born, what is it?
Every minute, yeah, that's what Barnum said, didn't he?
And make some money.
Yeah. Well, you can see.
Want to do it for Channel 49?
Well, sure. Yeah, I don't know if anybody would believe it or not. And then you got to have the proof anyway.
Well, yeah, but by that time we could fold up the business.
Oh, and then sneak away into the night, right? Okay. More about Finnmark. All right.
Yeah.
Now, that's what we were saying, is that we're Finland, where Norway bordered and all of those countries, and of course Finnmark would be the way, way, way up on the top of Norway. That particular area.
That's cute.
But northern Norway is really an entirely different world, one of snowy landscapes and harsh mountain ridges. But it's not frosty countryside all year round. In fact, no other area in the world this far above the Arctic Circle is as warm, and it can be called the land of the strawberries because of the climate. It's tempered by the North Atlantic current. And a lot of the delicious strawberries are grown way up there. Would you believe that?
No. I find that incomprehensible when it's so cold, and yet to be able to grow something like strawberries.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's because of that the warm water.
Warm.
That current from the Atlantic going up there. Anyway, we're going to talk about that a little bit later on, because we're coming into this town of Voss. Now, this was the town that we mentioned earlier that during World War II was completely bombed out, except for this church and the hotel, which is over by the train station. Now, this church is, I think it's really very stately looking, and it was built, I think, back 1200 something. Anyway, it looks like it's very solid. However, they did put a new roof on it, and you have to do that, of course, with a lot of these roofs. It look like those walls will stand forever.
Doesn't look like now watch how smart I am now.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like a stave church.
That's right, because it's not built out of
because
wood.
it's not wood. Now, see, I found out what stave was.
Great, that's good. Now, the only thing is that the church was locked. We wanted to go and take a look at it, and it was locked, and so we got a chance then to wander around in the cemeteries, which is always a lot of fun, isn't it?
Yes, I love to read the tombstones and the history behind it. Some of them just tell you the whole history of the town that you're living in.
They really, yeah, it really does. It really does. Well, Liz and Jim went around and they started reading a lot of the tombstones there, and so it was very interesting.
Prayer.
The church was built 1277, originally a Catholic church, but after the Reformation, it became a Protestant church. And it says, "Welcome to the Voss Kirche," and it's only 10 kroners to go inside, but there was nobody.
Stayed outside.
Well, there was nobody there to ask for the kroners. This is beautiful. I thought the little Norwegian house. Ah, there's my troll.
Marv, this is where
There's
you ought
my
to tell
troll.
your troll story. You're going to save it for later?
I think I will, because this was also the town where Knut Rockne was born, March 4th, 1888. And there's a memorial to famous Knut Rockne, of course, as we can see here. And that's what he looked like.
I laughed when I heard one of the guides say, do you know who Knut Rockne was? And now when I stand up and sing da 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 dum, you know, the whole Notre Dame song.
And of course, he was a giant of American football.
And a good man. I mean, a good person.
Well, the town here, as we can see, you can go horseback riding if you'd like to, or if you want to go rafting, you can do that as well.
You know.
And you can go paragliding if you would like to do that. You can also take a little seaplane right there if you'd like to do that, because this is quite an area, and this is a very beautiful area. It sits on this lake. Now, I don't know if it's a fjord or not, so don't ask me that, but I know there's a lot of water there.
Well, it says that you can tell if it's a fjord if you have cliffs on either side, steep cliffs on either side, and the water flows through.
And flows through, but it has to empty into the ocean.
Into the sea.
Into the sea,
okay.
right.
Yes.
That's why, as time changes, some fjords are no longer fjords, but lakes. There's the hotel that we can see way over there, the one with the peaked roofs over there, and that was the only other place that was left during World War II that was not bombed out of this little town of Voss. And,
well, there probably wasn't too much there to start with.
I don't know, but there certainly wasn't much left
pretty?
after it.
Yeah.
It's a big hotel, so you know and I think it's a big vacation area. So that I don't know. There's some newer hotels over there too. Anyway, that is the town of Voss, and we hope that you enjoyed the little visit there. Anyway, I'm going to go back
to the
Finnmark, right?
Okay.
Okay. We talked about it was not as cold as we kept thinking. Of course, it is during the wintertime. I mean, it's covered with snow. But from May to September, there's almost constant daylight there. And during the remaining part of the year, both the days and night are almost entirely shaded in the dusk of evening. Much of the land was covered by ice only about 10,000 years ago. And, you know, that's a pretty short time as far as the history of the world is concerned. Despite the rugged conditions, though, people were probably have lived there since the last big glacier, melted. But now most of the people in Finnmark are said to live within walking distance of the ocean. At least that's where the important towns are located, and they have good highway links, the settlements together. There are ferry boats that go along the coastline, and there are planes that fly into the interior too. But back here in this part of Norway, we're going to the town of through the town of Darla, and Darla, a lot of people know in Sweden is where they make the Darla horses. However, we're in Darla, Norway, and this is where they make the Norwegian sweaters.
Yeah, and that amazes me. I didn't find out, Marv, where they get. Well, I guess there's a good grazing land for sheep there, though. But we didn't see any sheep in the mountains.
No, they probably were pastured somewhere else this time of year. Could have been.
Well, why? This is the time they'd be grazing.
Well,
I mean,
I don't
there's
know. Maybe
no
this was
snow there.
maybe this was
You're
a time for shearing.
You're supposed to have all those answers, honestly.
I'm not a
But
sheep herder. I don't know those things.
You're not Basque.
No,
No, you're
no,
not.
and I'm not a Norwegian Swiss
Okay,
sheep herder either.
but-
I can't even say it. More.
Yeah, okay, but it just seemed like that you'd have to see some of them around in the countryside as
Yeah.
we were driving through, some of the sheep. So maybe they
Maybe
imported
maybe they import stuff from Scotland.
the wool.
Yeah.
Could be, huh?
Could have been. I don't
Okay.
know. Might be. Anyway, I don't think they have to import reindeer.
No.
They have reindeer in the
We
north.
have
and-
rain all the time, dear.
That's right. And if you look down here, you'll even see a part of a fish farm on this particular lake.
We have that in
so-
Yugoslavia too. We saw a lot of fish farms.
Did you? Well, that's. I wouldn't think that you'd have to farm them, but I don't know. Maybe you do. And of course, that is a very good business. So I don't know. We passed through lots and lots of tunnels on our way to Bergen, and the road, really just as we say, just goes right through the
that's
mountain.
pretty.
Isn't it beautiful?
That's so pretty.
It really is gorgeous. It is something. We talked about the reindeer, but and of course, which are in the north. And now you wanted to know something about the other animals. Well, there are a lot of
but you
domestic
didn't finish
animals.
about the reindeer. What do they do with the reindeer? Do they?
They herd them.
I heard that, but I mean, I want to know: are they commercial? Do they eat them?
Sometimes, yeah.
And
Reindeer meat
besides
is
giving them to Santa, what else?
reindeer meat. You've had reindeer meat before?
No, I haven't. I wouldn't eat it.
Oh, yes, you did. You didn't know that you had it.
Was
sure you
it
did.
jerky?
Oh, you can have reindeer jerky, sure. There's one of the new bridges, of course, that is being built, and we're just about on the outside of Bergen. I'll get out of the reindeer story here real quick. Anyway, I want to talk about domestic animals. There's cows, goats, sheep, pigs, horses, chickens, and so on. And the list
What
of
kind of animal is that?
A
What is
so
that
on?
a breed of?
I'm not quite sure. But the wild things, the wild animals are wolf, lynx, otter, and fox, and an occasional bear in the north.
Okay.
How about that?
All right.
So you can bear yourself in the north. Okay, hey, look, here it is, Bergen.
We're coming
How
into
about
the
that? You've waited for a long time to get here,
civilization,
right?
Yeah, I love the story about the people that live in Bergen. They don't call them, or maybe this is not true anymore. But you ask them if they were from Norway, if they're Norwegians,
Yeah.
and they won't admit to that. They say, "I'm not from Norway. I'm from Bergen."
They have their nose up in the air.
Yes,
huh?
with their nose up in the air. They are very, very proud to come from Bergen.
Right. Well,
a lot of
Bergen,
reason.
yeah, Bergen today has about 220,000 residents, and it is the second largest city in Norway. And we're just kind of hugging the coastline right here, and there are islands out here, as you can probably see. And a lot of cruise ships come into
Oh,
Bergen,
yes.
as Carol was telling us earlier on the program today. And so we want to make sure that we got there after the people from the cruise ship had already done their shopping and gotten out of the way so we could do our shopping.
Well,
And-
it's the principal port.
Oh, yes,
what
yeah.
Bergen is.
Yeah. And the building, see right here on the right-hand side, look how
Yeah.
long this building
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
That's a building where they made ropes for the old sailing ships.
So they started at one end and they just kept weaving in, so they had to have it long enough so that they could have one
No
continuous
breaks.
rope.
No breaks in the rope, right. Yeah, and then you probably looped it around and,
and
came
looped
back
it
the
around
other
and
way.
came back the other way.
I would
huh?
suspect so. The church that we're going to see here in just a little bit, St. Mary's Church, we're going to see the outside of it, is the oldest building in Bergen, and it was built between the years 1130 and 1140. And it's sort of built like a cathedral, but only in miniature. And it's been in constant use since the year 1130, and so that's quite some time.
Well, that's nice. I'm glad the people go to church and have it be in continual use.
Right. And a lot of the buildings here, of course, are built of wood. And this was always a problem because in Bergen there have been histories of so many fires. The town has been burnt down I don't know how many times, but they had a huge fire in the year 1702, and we're going to see where they had rebuilt in that particular area. And Bergen, of course, is noted. You see on a lot of the postcards and things that these what they call the Hanseatic houses, or the wharf, and it's where the German traders lived and worked in the particular area. But the interesting thing is that it did burn down so many times that when they rebuilt it, they said, okay, no chimneys, no fireplaces are allowed. Now, to me, I don't know, these had to be very, very hardy people, because they only had one house they called the kitchen house where they could, and that was built out of stone, I believe, where they could have fire and everything. But can you imagine? I mean, now this has got to be pretty cold in the wintertime, and not to have any heat in the house, in a wood house during that time?
I would hate it. I would hate it.
Well,
but Bergen had a reputation as a town where it always rains. And it says that if you didn't see a man or a person carrying an umbrella, the horse would get skittish, because it was such an unusual thing. But I don't understand how that could be. If it's 7 mountains that surround it, it has to have a lot of rain, but it's also protected because of the mountains. The moisture coming in from the sea can't dump it because of the mountains. So,
but it did the afternoon that we were there. It started out awful nice, but I'll tell you, I was before the day was over, I was absolutely soaked from head to tail. But that's okay. I mean, I probably needed it anyway.
Being all wet is kind of a familiar thing, isn't it?
Now, these are the houses that you can see. There's the kitchen house right there, the little white one right there, and here's another one over here. And these are these old buildings. And of course, today there are a lot of shops in there that carry some very trendy things, and also some very touristy things as well. And on the other side of that is, of course, where the harbor is, or where the wharf is. And
look at the skylights. They take advantage of the sun when it shines.
You have to,
Sure.
when you're up in the north like this. And of course, during the summer months, you're going to have daylight up until 11 o'clock, or maybe a little bit later at night. But boy, the other time of year, it's going to be dark pretty much. We're going to cross the oldest street in Bergen, and we're just about ready to do that now. And as we go further down, before we take a right-hand turn, I want everybody to take a look up to the left-hand side, because there is a funicular that goes up the hill, and that's how most of the people that live up that hill, they use that as, just general transportation. But boy, it's become real popular with the tourists too, so some of the local people have to maybe wait just a little bit in line.
I would guess it'd be a little expensive for them to have to use that as their transportation and depend on it.
You got a city pass for the people that live there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, and the old butcher shop is down here. The meat market was built in 1836, and it was built because a law was passed that no meat could be sold outside or in the open.
Well, we've seen that in the past, haven't we, Marv?
Yes, a lot of our travels we've seen it out in the open.
Yes, those chickens hanging out there.
But anyway, they passed the law there, and we're going to join our program back here next time, but it's just about time for us to say goodbye. So if you're interested in any of the trips that we have, give Betty a call at
488-7443.
We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.